final evolution stage of Gible, Garchomp's what you might refer to as a pseudo-legendary Pokemon. To be a pseudo-legendary, the general consensus is that you have a 3-stage evolution and a base stat total of 600. And other Pokemon you could fit into this category would be ones like Salamence, Tyranitar, and Dragonite. So why Garchomp for this run? Well, it was introduced in Gen 4, and in these minimum battles challenges, I wanted to try and complete them with a Pokemon introduced in the specific generation I'm running. What is a minimum battles challenge, you might be asking yourself? It's a challenge where we try to get through the game while only fighting what could be considered a mandatory battle. And to do these challenges, you generally need a Pokemon that can carry your run. In other runs, I've used Lugia and Jirachi, so I wanted a break from Psychic Pokemon this time around. Garchomp, while having a decent pool of stats all round, where it really excels is in its attack and to a lesser extent its speed. And that's just fine for us because we want to hit hard and we want to hit fast. Garchomp also doesn't have too many weaknesses in this gen. It's 4 times weak to Ice and 2 times to Dragon, with Fairy having not been introduced just yet. If we take a look at its move pool, it starts off with Tackle, Sand Attack, Dragon Rage and Sandstorm. Unfortunately, because of the way moves are automatically overwritten, we don't get access to Fire Fang, which honestly would have been pretty useful. Anyway, its level up moves don't really kick into higher gear until Dragon Claw unfortunately, but luckily we'll have some help along the way. Garchomp can learn some pretty decent TMs, most notably Earthquake, Flamethrower and Swords Dance. With its prowess in physical, we won't be relying on special moves too much. So we have our Pokemon, now let's go over the rules, which are pretty simple. Rule number 1 is no items in battle. Held items are fine, but we can't use things like potions, X items, etc. If we did, we can simply set up and sweep or stall out battles. Number 2 is no catching of wild Pokemon unless it's for HM purposes or a trade. With the Pokemon we're choosing, it'd be impossible to complete the game otherwise. Now, these Pokemon can be in our party, but if they were to participate in battle, they'd just have to not attack and get KO'd. Number 3 is no fighting a trainer unless we absolutely have to, i.e. we can't progress the game unless we do so. Now, there may be instances where there is a choice about who we fight, with our choice ideally being the trainer with fewer Pokemon. I'll be keeping a record of the battles on the screen. In the description, you'll also find a list of all the trainers in a Google Doc if you're interested. Number 4 is no save states in battle. This challenge is already hard enough and honestly not consistent, so for things like the Elite Four, save states between them may be used for testing purposes, as in devising a strategy. Then we have to run through them without saving in between. And that's it, those are the rules. Next, we're doing this run in Pokémon Platinum, and Platinum is the 3rd game in Gen 4, coming after Diamond and Pearl. There's nothing too different in this version that affects the challenge, so I won't really bother going over the changes. One thing I will say, however, is that after using the randomizer tool to insert Garchomp into our initial Pokemon selection, I ended up using an action replay code to later catch one in the wild. This was because of the inordinately long time it'd take us from selecting our Pokemon to being able to check its nature and IVs. We want a good Garchomp for this run, considering what we have in front of us, so ultimately, I simply caught a level 7 Garchomp later, which was at exactly our same level. We even lost some XP by choosing it. This was done so I could get a jolly nature with some decent IVs. Anyway, with all that out of the way, Garchomp's Dragon Rage move really does make the early game quite trivial, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it. There are a few trainers on our way to Allbird Gym, so let's just breeze through that. So at Allbird Gym itself, we can avoid everyone in the gym and head straight to Rourke. He has a Geodude, Onix, and a Chronodos. Dragon Rage will easily blast through the Geodude and the Chronodos too, and finally the Onix. By the end of the gym, we're at least level 10. Now we have the Valley Windworks and the Eterna Gym. We progress through the game as normal, bulldozing Commander Mars and a dummy thick Purugly, and by the time we've reached Eterna Gym, we've only fought around 16 trainers. For Gardenia, we're at level 17. She has a Turtwig, who I always chose as my starter, plus a Cherrim and a Roserade. Dragon Rage, while still not one-shotting Pokemon now, still does a fair bit of damage, as we can see with the Turtwig. It then uses Reflect, and by doing so, tanks our takedown. Turtwig then uses Grass Knot, which does about a third to us. Gardenia then uses a Super Potion on Turtwig, taking it nearly back to full health. We then miss the takedown. I go for Sandstorm because of Garchomp's Sand Veil ability, which boosts its evasion. Then I use another Dragon Rage. Turtwig uses Grass Knot once again, but there is no second heal, and another Dragon Rage seals the deal. Cherrim is up next because the Sunlight is still strong. Cherrim transforms. While my health's low, I'm not worried just yet. I do, however, use Sandstorm to counter the Sunlight. Cherrim uses Grass Knot, and I'm on 1 HP. I go for Dragon Rage. I'm expecting this thing to knock me out. It uses Magical Leaf, and we are down. First loss of the run. Things start much as they did last time. I go for Dragon Rage, Turtwig then goes for Reflect. However, Gardenia opts not to heal Turtwig, allowing me to get off a second Dragon Rage to send it packing. Now, when Cherrim comes out, I'm still at a very nice amount of health. We use Dragon Rage, it does about 2/3 of Cherrim's health. Cherrim goes for Safeguard, for all the good it will do. Again, Gardenia doesn't heal, and we go for the same again. Roserade then up next. One more Dragon Rage, please. Despite doing good damage, Roserade has a berry, which restores some of its health. It then paralyzes us with Stun Spore, but I'm pretty confident we can get through this. Roserade's Grass Knot does just under half damage, which means a final Dragon Rage from Garchomp ends the battle. Let's blast all the way to Fantina's gym in Hearthome. You can avoid every trainer in this gym, though it's a bit of a pain stumbling around as you do. However, while we wander around aimlessly in the dark, it's a good opportunity to talk about Fantina herself. Now, she's a ghost type gym. In Platinum, her roster includes a Duskull, Haunter, and a Mismagius. You might look at Garchomp and think big whoop, and honestly, I thought the same thing going into this battle, but boy was I wrong. For starters, we're 6 levels lower than our final Pokemon Mismagius, and 4 levels lower than the Duskull and Haunter. With the type of Pokemon Garchomp is, we wouldn't think that would be too much of an issue. While we have Dragon Rage, and we have no issues getting past the Duskull and Haunter, you'll notice what's happening to us along the way. Our health is slowly getting chipped away, so much so that when we eventually reach Mismagius, we're at 26 HP. Then, because Mismagius is a faster Pokemon than us, it uses Shadow Ball and we go into the big museum in the sky. After a period of smooth sailing, the seams have become a little rougher now, and unfortunately we don't have much Blossom to cling to. That's a poor metaphor, it should be spookier. But anyway, the TMs we currently have access to are a bit lacking, so I persist, hitting my head against the wall for a little longer until finally, I choose to teach Garchomp Stealth Rock. Stealth Rock will damage a Pokemon coming into battle by how weak they are to Rock, and Rock isn't too effective against Ghost, but I really will take what I can get in this battle. Ultimately, with very few options open to us, Fantina is a battle that absolutely relies on a heaping of luck. We effectively need to reach the Mismagius with enough HP to tank one of its Shadow Balls. Here's what I'd call a successful battle, though successful is really doing a lot of the heavy lifting here. Against the Duskull, we need a number of things not to happen. One of these things is not getting hit with Will-O-Wisp, because this will inflict burn and we can't survive the battle with it. We could have equipped a berry to deal with this, but I ultimately decided against it. At the start of battle, I now go for Stealth Rock. Duskull then goes for Future Sight, which is okay because it doesn't do too much damage. I then go for a Dragon Rage, and as you can see, it's never going to KO this thing and we'll always need to use another. Not to mention we also don't want Fantina to use a Super Potion on Duskull. Duskull then goes for Will-O-Wisp, unfortunately it misses. Fantina then goes for that Super Potion which heals it. We go for Dragon Rage again and we're in the same position as before. However, we outspeed and can use Dragon Rage again to take it down. Next up is Haunter, and we've made it past the Duskull without taking a single hit point of damage, which is extremely rare. Stealth Rock takes off some of Haunter's health. We line up a Dragon Rage, and while Haunter can use Sucker Punch, it goes for Shadow Claw instead. It doesn't do much damage to it, thankfully no crit, but Fantina then uses that Super Potion. We use Dragon Rage again, and we will outspeed, but there's a Sucker Punch. So we've made it through to Mismagius, leveling up on the way. But at 50 HP, I'm not too sure if we can survive what's to come. Stealth Rock does a bit of damage, Mismagius outspeeds and we get hit with that Shadow Ball, it takes it down to 20 HP. We won't survive another one. I use Dragon Rage again, and I'm running on hope now more than anything. Mismagius' Citrus Berry restores its health. I know a Dragon Rage will be enough, but I'm still a little skeptical. Mismagius then, for some reason, uses Psybeam, which leaves me on just 1 HP. I use Dragon Rage and it goes down. We got an insane confluence of luck happening there. We had Will-O-Wisp misses, we had Shadow Claw not getting a crit, Mismagius going for big range strats and using Psybeam. Honestly, while I appreciate consistency, we were never going to get it with this kind of battle. So I take the win and a dip. So at Veilstone Gym, from Fantina, we can then make our way to Veilstone Gym. And even though we cover a fair distance, we only have to face 2 mandatory trainers along the way. And Maylene is a fighting type gym. She has a Meditite, a Machoke, and a Lucario. Going into this battle, we're level 25. For some perspective, her Lucario is level 32. Fortunately, none of her Pokemon's moves are particularly effective against us. In my first battle with the Meditite, I'm not too sure how to approach things. While Takedown is my most powerful move, we've got recall damage to contend with. I go for a Stealth Rock, but it uses Fake Out, and while not doing a ton of damage, I'm still not liking my outlook. I do get the Stealth Rock off, but Meditite then uses Drain Punch, and it's shaving off a fair bit of my health. I then go for a Sandstorm, hoping I can up my evasion a bit. it goes for the Drain Punch, it crits, and we are out of the game. In another battle, I go for the path of least resistance by using 2 Dragon Rages to get through to her next Pokemon at 53 HP. She then brings out the Lucario. While I go for Dragon Rage, I am expecting to be outsped, and I am. Lucario uses Force Palm, leaving me on 20 HP. Then, before I can get off another move, Drain Punch comes along, and yeah, we are done. In another few runs, I teach Garchomp Shadow Claw, which we picked up from Fantina. While it's super effective against the Meditite, often KOing it in one, we still don't fare too well against Lucario. However, after progressing this far in the game, an area has opened up to us. Beneath the Cycle Road is Route 206. Here, there is a secret entrance to Wayward Cave. Aside from being able to catch Garchomp's primary form, Gibble, you can also perform some mad Pro BMX skills to get access to TM26. Earthquake. Honestly, getting a move like that, which is usually reserved for the endgame, particularly in Victory Road, is pretty crazy. After grabbing TM26, we teach it to Garchomp, and it's a move that will be seeing us through to the end of the game. We then try Melee once more. Meditite will always start with Fake Out. After that, I go for an Earthquake, we comfortably one-shot the Meditite, and we level up. Lucario comes out next. We know we're getting outsped. As long as the Lucario doesn't crit, we should be okay. 1 Force Palm later, and we're still standing. Lucario, being part Steel, is weak to Earthquake, and we put all Yellow down. Finally, only the Machoke stands in our way. We pop off an Earthquake, and while doing good damage, it's not enough to finish it off. Machoke uses Strength. We're now on 25 HP. Another Earthquake, and that's Melee dealt with. So we get more plot until we arrive in Pastoria City, where we have Crash and Wake. We're a number of badges down and have only been involved in 34 mandatory battles. Wake has a Gyarados, Quagsire, and his Floatzel, which is level 37. Both Wake's Floatzel and his Gyarados have Brine, a water move that doubles in power when we're at half HP or less. Given our tendency to get hit, it's not a great matchup. Much like Fantina, this is gonna take some time. By my first attempt, I'm now at level 31 and have learned Slash too. I'm not really sure what to go for against the Gyarados because it's a naturally bulky Pokemon. I ultimately choose Dragon Rage because it feels a bit more consistent damage-wise. However, it only does about a third. When Gyarados uses Waterfall on us, it just does under half. I go for another Dragon Rage, it uses Waterfall again, and we're at 18 HP. I have very little hope for this battle, but persevere anyway, until the next Pokemon comes out, Floatzel. I'm expecting this because we're low on HP and Floatzel has Aqua Jet, which is a priority move, meaning it always goes first. As expected, Floatzel does go first, and we get slapped. I persist for a while, and though in one attempt I managed to make it through to Floatzel at 64 HP, when Floatzel appears, and I'm not within a one-shot range for Aqua Jet, it'll go for its most dangerous move against us, Ice Fang. What I also learned from this encounter is that Floatzel will outspeed us regardless whether it uses Aqua Jet or not. Remember, we're 6 levels below this thing, Ice Fang crits, and we are knocked out. In another route, I teach Garchomp Sunny Day instead of Slash. You can pick this up on Route 212. The hope is that I can mitigate Gyarados' water moves, so much so that I could potentially be in better health for the Floatzel. However, one thing I didn't mention before is that Gyarados has Intimidate, which cuts our attack too. As you can see, Sunny Day really doesn't mitigate too much damage. Even though I make it past the Gyarados, using a turn to set up Sunny Day just pulls me in a similar position. Floatzel uses Crunch, which leaves me on 1 HP, then we get the Aqua Jet, and you know the rest. In another attempt, I combine Sunny Day with Substitute, which you can pick up at the old Chateau. While Substitute can tank a hit from Waterfall, we have to sacrifice our health to do so, and it's not like we have leftovers either. The strat bears no fruit, so I simply dispense with it. Now, a while ago I mentioned that I had not yet reached Veilstone, so couldn't visit the Game Corner. The Game Corner has a number of TMs available, TMs like Flamethrower, Thunderbolt and Ice Beam, but they're not quite what we're after. For 4,000 coins, which translates to 80,000 Pokédollars, we can pick up Swords Dance. To afford this, I pretty much have to sell everything but the shirt on my back. Having taught Garchomp Swords Dance, a move that will carry us through the rest of the game, we try Wake again. Against the Gyarados, I start with Sunny Day. Gyarados will use Waterfall, which does a round at 5th. Then I set up my first Swords Dance. We get another Waterfall and we're on 64 HP. So I set up my second Swords Dance. Again, Waterfall, which takes us down to 37 HP. In the back of my mind, I know I need to be in a range where Aqua Jet won't shot me and still have Sunny Day available, so now I go for Shadow Claw. we get the crit and Gyarados is KO'd. When Floatzel comes out, I know I just need to survive one attack and we should be good. However, we go first, meaning it was a speed tie all along. Earthquake hits and it knocks it out. And this is now my first time seeing the Quagsire. I go for a Shadow Claw, hoping I can get it in one, but it only does just over half its HP. However, Quagsire can't do too much against us and it uses Mud Shot. While it doesn't take off too much HP, leaving us with 18, I'm more worried about the speed drop. I go for Shadow Claw and we still outspeed it. Quagsire is knocked out and we finally beat him awake. Now surely, with Swords Dance and Earthquake, that should be the end of Garchomp's trials, right? If only. Because after some more plot you have to face Cyrus, the antagonist of this game, in the ruins of Celestic Town. On paper, Cyrus's team may not look like it should be too much trouble. His Murkrow isn't great, nor is his Golbat, but it's the Sneasel that walls us. Sneasel's quick and it has Ice Punch. In my first battle with Cyrus, my Garchomp was at the same level as his Sneasel, which is 34. And while Sneasel is quick, we can still outspeed it and get off an Earthquake, which nearly knocks it out. However, when Sneasel goes for Ice Punch, it gets the crit and one-shot. And every time I retried this battle, Sneasel kept getting crits. Even when it didn't, Ice Punch is still a one-shot. With Garchomp's 4x weakness to Ice, getting a low roll where I survive is extremely rare. In the instance where I tank the Ice Punch, Cyrus would then use a Hyper Potion on the Sneasel, which would then use Quick Attack. So after a few more beatdowns, I finally relent and use a couple of the rare candies I've got on Garchomp to bring it up to level 36. As an aside, there's an insane amount of rare candies available in this game, like around 20 I think. So trying another attack, I decide to firstly attack the Shadow Claw to get Sneasel in a range where Cyrus won't heal it. While this seems to work, and I tank the Ice Punch, I then get frozen. Also, another annoying thing about retrying this battle is that there is so much preamble before actually fighting. In my final attempt, I elevate Garchomp one more level to 37. I start the battle off with Earthquake, and we knock it out. Easy every time. Golbat then comes out, I use Swords Dance. Golbat uses Supersonic but it misses, I use Dragon Claw and he takes it out in one. Murkrow then comes out, another Dragon Claw, it's defeated. Fun. Is it Canalave? Canalave? I don't know. Don't know the pronunciation on that one. We have to fight most of the gym members in any gym we've faced so far, bringing our total to 47. However, that's about all there is to say about this gym, including the leader Byron himself. Being an electric steel type, there's very little his Pokemon can do against us. Against his Magneton, I go for Swords Dance as per tradition. Magneton uses Flash Cannon, which does maybe a third of my HP. Instead of going for an attack, I line up another Swords Dance. Magneton uses Flash Cannon again, leaving us at 47 HP, and we get our Special Drop 2. I then go for Earthquake, and it's an easy win. With my attack now high enough, I immediately hit the Steelix with an Earthquake, and despite its bulk, it can't put up much of a fight. Byron's final Pokemon is the Bastiodon, but even that is powerless to another Earthquake. And that's it. One of the easiest gym battles we've had so far since the start of the game. After Byron, we can beat up some more galactic minions and trainers before finally reaching Snow Point City. Now, in the gym here, you have to faceplant the snowballs blocking your path until you're able to reach the gym leader itself. However, while you may think that there are certain mandatory battles here, you'd be wrong. By watching your timing, you can get past all the trainers in this gym. But Candice herself is not so easy. We had such a hard time with one ice Pokemon before. What are we supposed to do against 4? Candice has a Piloswine, a Bombersnow, Frostlass, and a Sneasel. Her highest Pokemon, the Frostlass, is at level 44 too, and they all have pretty decent ice attacks. In my very first battle, we need Sneasel first again. However, because of the battles we've fought along the way, we're at level 43. While Sneasel has Ice Shard, which is a priority move, it's not as powerful as Ice Punch. Even still, it does well over half our HP. Despite setting up my Swords Dance, it's pretty pointless because Sneasel can simply use Ice Shard again and I'm done. The very next battle, I decide setting up against Sneasel is pointless. I go for Earthquake this time. Sneasel goes for Ice Shard and we're still getting hammered by it. But Earthquake is enough to take it out in one. Piloswine's up next, and it has Avalanche. I'm having flashbacks of Price in Pokemon Gold, whose Piloswine would always go for Hail first. However, it's not the case here, and Piloswine hits us with Avalanche, which is more than enough to finish us off. Despite multiple failings, I'm convinced that if I can somehow set up on Sneasel, then I can make it through the rest of Candice's Pokemon. But making that a reality is another thing entirely. In one attempt, Sneasel for some reason doesn't use Ice Shard, so I get off an Earthquake, taking it out, and get to Piloswine with full health. I immediately set up the Swords Dance. Piloswine then uses Hail, I assume because it's Avalanche wouldn't one-shot us. I have a Draco plate equipped, so I go for Dragon Claw and I take it out. This is the furthest I've ever gotten, and a decent health too. I get the level up to 44 before Abomasnow comes out. I pause here because I decide to check what moves the Abomasnow has, with its most effective move being Avalanche. I think I can make it through. After pausing for so long, I must have been having some committee meeting about which button to press next. I eventually go for Shadow Claw. Like, I think, or at least I hope this is because I thought, that I would be able to take it out with a single Dragon Claw. It then uses Avalanche, it gets a crit, and that's the end of that. In another attempt, I make it to the Abomasnow again, this time at a nice amount of HP. I use Dragon Claw, and it takes it out in one. Now, I honestly don't know why I didn't do that from the start. Anyway, Frostlass is up next, and it's the first time I've seen this Pokemon. I go for Dragon Claw. It misses. Frostlass uses Blizzard, which has 100% accuracy because of the hail, and I am a goner. Like with Cyrus, I relent again, and I use some more rare candies to elevate myself to level 47. Sneasel's first, it uses Ice Shard, but because of our higher level, it now does less than half damage. Our Earthquake then knocks it out. For Piloswine, I set up a Swords Dance, it then uses Hail. Dragon Claw is a one-shot. We're on 72 HP for the Abomasnow. My Dragon Claw, like Piloswine, takes it down. Hail shaves off some HP, now we're at 62, and I can't afford to miss against the Frostlass like before. Dragon Claw hits, and Frostlass is out of the picture. Perhaps the most notable addition to Platinum in terms of story is the part of the story where you head to the Distortion world and you start, jumping along the walls like you're in Inception or something. Before that, however, we had some encounters at Mount Coronet and the Spear Pillar, but they're not really worth showing. The next battle where we come a little unstuck is with Cyrus again in the Distortion world. His team is much improved from the last time we encountered him. He now has a Houndoom, Murkrow, Crobat, Gyarados, and Sneasel. Through the encounters we've had so far, our level has risen to 51, which means for perhaps the first time we're actively higher than some of our opponents. Instead of starting with Sneasel, Houndoom is the first Pokemon Cyrus sends out. I go for a Swords Dance because with 6 Pokemon in his roster, it's more important than ever that we can start siding through them. Houndoom then gets off a Will-O-Wisp. I decide to go for another Swords Dance. Houndoom goes for a Dark Pulse. At the end of it, we're already below half health. Finally, I go with Earthquake, but I'm not really holding out too much hope for the rest of the battle. It's obviously a one-shot, but we're hurt by burn. When Sneasel comes out, it has no priority moves, meaning we can go with Earthquake again. Despite being untouched, we're at 45 HP. Gyarados hits us with Intimidate, and now our Dragon Claw doesn't manage to finish it. Gyarados then uses Ice Fang, and we're done. In the next attempt to avoid the burn and any further damage, I go for Earthquake right away. While it is a one-hit KO because we haven't set up a single Swords Dance, when we use Earthquake on Sneasel, it's not a one-shot, meaning it can use Ice Punch, and yeah, 2 HP, I just reset. A few battles later, I do manage to find some equilibrium. For Houndoom, I go for a Swords Dance, hoping it doesn't use Will-O-Wisp. It goes for Dark Pulse, which does about a third. However, Earthquake can then knock it out. Because our attack is increased, Earthquake is a certainty on Sneasel now. When Gyarados pops up, I go for another Swords Dance to mitigate the Intimidate. It uses Ice Fang, and though devastating, we make it through with 16 HP. I choose a Dragon Claw, and Gyarados goes bye-bye. We also level up before Honchkrow comes out. I wasn't too sure about its speed, but with Dragon Claw and our boosts, we deal with it without issue. Now, Cyrus's final Pokemon is the Crobat. It's quick, and I'm thinking things over because it'll get to go first, which it does, and it uses Crossbows. We cling on with just 3 HP because it's not very effective, and then follow up with Dragon Claw, finishing the battle. Definitely benefited from a bit of luck. So finally, we are at our last gym leader before the Elite Four. With Volkner being an electric type, you can already imagine how this battle will go. He leads with Jolteon, we set up a Swords Dance, Jolteon goes for Iron Tail and misses, so we set up another Swords Dance. It then uses Iron Tail again, and it gets a crit, which does about a quarter. I then go for Earthquake, and it's down. Luxray's up next, one more Earthquake and one more defeated Pokemon. When the Electivire rears its fluffy head, I'm thinking it's pretty bulky, but I'm liking my chances. It manages to get off a pathetic quick attack, we use Earthquake and it crits. Finally, Volkner sends out his last Pokemon, Raichu, and Raichu goes down to an Earthquake. Maybe the easiest gym battle we've had. So along with getting our usual potions and elixirs for Golden ahead, I decided to go rare candy hunting. Though, spoilers, it was ultimately useless, and you'll soon see why. Oh, and I never bothered covering the Barry fights because they're just not worth it. He is trash. So Aaron is first. He's a bug-type trainer with a Yanmega, Scizor, or Skizor, however you want to say it, Heracross, a Vespiquen, I don't know, and a Drapion. And you'll see by going solo that our levels have now just consistently surpassed our opponents. Aaron goes with the Yanmega first. While it likes to use U-turn, this time to send out Drapion, we don't care and set up a Sword Stance. After just one, we use Earthquake, which KOs the Drapion. For Heracross, I deliberate whether to go for another Sword Stance, but use Earthquake instead. For Vespiquen, I use Dragon Claw. When Yanmega comes back out, I use Dragon Claw again, and it's easily dealt with. Finally, for Scizor, I go for Earthquake, and that's Aaron done. And we, 30 damage through that whole battle? Not bad. Both those Pokemon all have a ground typing, and while Gliscor and Rhyperior do have ice moves, I'm planning to not let them get any off. With the Whiscash out first, it makes the most sense to set up against it, so we use Sword Stance. Whiscash then uses Sandstorm, which works just fine for us. I use another Sword Stance. It goes for Earth Power, which does about a fifth. Contenter attack is high enough, I use Dragon Claw. Whiscash is out. Gliscor is up next. Another Dragon Claw and another defeated Pokemon. I assume because Bertha really wants to get off an ice move, she sends out the Rhyperior next. This thing's bulky, so I'm debating what to do until settling on Earthquake because of its rock typing. With Rhyperior defeated, we get enough XP to level up to 60. For the Hippowdon, we again go with Dragon Claw, and finally for Golem, we use Earthquake. And that is Bertha. As you can see, Garchomp is absolutely just tearing through anything in his way. And because we have Earthquake and Flint is a fire type, I'm not expecting him to put up much resistance either. Houndoom comes out first. And ever since Gold, I've really liked Houndour and Houndoom. I think I might have to try a run with them in OG Gold. Anyway, my fondness for it won't stop me from sending this thing to the Shadow Realm, so we set up Sword Stance. It uses Sunny Day, which won't do much. Given how weak all of Flint's Pokemon are to Earthquake, I know one Sword Stance will be enough, and it is. Flint next brings out Flareon, another Earthquake, Rapidash, another one, Infernape, down, finally Magmortar. Can it tank an Earthquake? Nope. It's down. Now we have Lucian, the Psychic type member. He'll always start with Mr. Mime. Naturally, Psychic Pokemon tend to not have a superb amount of defense, so I feel like one Sword Stance should be enough. Mr. Mime goes for Reflect. Seeing this, I go for another Sword Stance for good measure. I then go for Crunch, which does well despite the Reflect. Espeon's next. Captain Crunch puts in a shift and takes it out. When Bronzong comes out, I debate for a second whether to use Earthquake, but remember it has Levitate, so settle for Crunch. And as I expected, Crunch doesn't quite manage to knock it out in one, but doing half's good enough all things considered. It uses Psychic, which doesn't do a ton of damage. I go for Dragon Claw just because. Then for Alakazam, I'm confident Crunch will be fine, and it is. Finally is the Gallade, which always reminds me of the French pastry galette, which is pretty tasty. Anyway, you know the drill. Earthquake, it's defeated. That is Lucian LeChance, finished. Now Cynthia, she's been considered one of the toughest champions in the series because of her great spread of differently typed Pokemon. She has a Spiritomb, a Roserade, Milotic, Lucario, Togekiss, and us, the Garchomp. Pretty scary lineup, so how will we fare against them? Unlike I would not do with many other Pokemon, I decide to set up against the Spiritomb. After using a Sword Stance, Spiritomb uses Shadow Ball, which does around a quarter. I think I can take another hit, so I set up another Sword Stance. It uses Dark Pulse, which puts me below half health. My mind wanders for a moment before eventually I decide to use Earthquake. I guess I was thinking about what would be the most effective move. Anyway, Spiritomb is defeated, and Cynthia brings out her Garchomp next. Oftentimes, this Pokemon will end up coming out last, but because it actually has a super effective move against us, which is Dragon Claw, Cynthia opts to bring it out now. However, even though we're at the same level, I outspeed and use Dragon Claw. Thanks to my high attack, it obliterates Garchomp. Then out comes my Milotic. After a moment of introspection, I go for a Dragon Claw again. That's my Milotic down and out. Next we have Togekiss. While a bulky Pokemon with a good amount of health, Dragon Claw gets a crit and knocks it out. Next is Lucario. I have Earthquake, which is super effective, so let's just go with that. Lucario is easily dealt with. Then Cynthia sends out her final Pokemon, the Roserade. With the final use of Earthquake, Roserade is knocked out. I get the level up, ultimately defeating Cynthia. So that was an interesting run for a number of reasons. If we were to chart the difficulty of the run, I feel it'd look pretty much like a bell curve. The other game was pretty easy. Garchomp struggled in the mid-game because of a lack of better moves, until we got access to Earthquake and Sword Stance, at which point it was just far too powerful a force to be reckoned with. Obviously, you can see why this thing has such a reputation. And after all that, we finished the game with a total of 91 mandatory battles. But hey, maybe you could have made the run even easier. Feel free to let me know. And I've also included a list of all the trainers that I fought and their locations in the description if you're interested. If you have an idea for an interesting run in the same style, let me know. And if you want to like, subscribe, go for it. Till next time, have a good one.